Hello. Oh, that's really loud. I also wanted to introduce my friend John, who will be providing American Sign Language interpretation for me throughout this. Okay. Oh, I've already started. Great. So I'm so glad all of you are here, and what I want to talk about is something really important because we've heard so many commitments throughout this conference already. Commitments to ending gender-based violence through incredibly innovative mechanisms, service provisions, amazing ways to address the lack of comprehensive sexual and reproductive health services for different groups of women and girls around the world, and amazing commitments to leave no one behind. But the reality is, 1 in 5 women are being left behind, and that's women and girls with disabilities around the world. I think a good example is if you take a walk or a roll through this fueling station, ask yourself, how many of these incredible innovations are accessible to deaf women, to women with visual impairments, to women with intellectual disabilities, to autistic women? And why shouldn't they know and be engaged in these innovative solutions as well? So at Women Enabled International, we wanted to come up with a resource to help those who are committed to ensuring that women and young people with disabilities, who make up 500 million of women in the world, are included in their programs. We wanted to make sure that they had a resource that they could use to make sure their programs are inclusive. Along with UNFPA, we created the UNFPA and Women Enabled Women and Young Persons with Disabilities Guidelines to Providing Rights-Based and Gender-Inclusive Gender-Based Violence and Sexual and Reproductive Health and Rights Services. And we did this because the statistics about what women and young people experience is really dire, and it's not something that can wait for the commitment. Because people with disabilities are 3 times more likely to experience physical violence, sexual violence, emotional violence, economic violence than anybody else. Women with disabilities are 10 times more likely to experience sexual violence. We have estimates that show us that 40 to 68% of women with disabilities will experience sexual violence before they turn 18. And if they need services, if they need to know about their body parts, if they need to be tested, we also know that in the US, 40 to 50% of gynecologists reported that they felt unprepared to treat adolescents with disabilities. So we know for a fact that we are leaving women and young people with disabilities behind, despite the fact that we also know that they have an increased risk of violence and violations of their sexual and reproductive health and rights. So behind me, you'll see a copy of the cover of the guidelines that we produced. And you can find the guidelines online at Women Enabled's website, womenenabled.org, and UNFPA's website. It's also available in a range of accessible services, such as Easy Read, which you see on the screen next to me. And if you don't know what that is, I suggest you check out the guidelines. It's also available in other formats, and it will be available in other languages, such as Spanish and English, along with Arabic and Chinese in the future. So I don't have much time, but I wanted to give you 3 takeaways on how you can begin to commit to women with disabilities. Just like everything, when you're thinking about applying the gender lens, you need to be thinking about applying a disability lens. So put that Post-it on your desk or in your phone and make sure that you're including the gender and disability lens. My first step for you is think about accessibility and inclusion. A ramp is not enough. Accessible information is not enough. Women with disabilities need to be at the table, and they need to be treated like equals. Second is, when in doubt, ask a person with a disability what they need, how you can deal with making your services inclusive in your budget. It's not that hard. Just find the women with disabilities in your community and engage them in a respectful and inclusive and accessible manner. And last is apply the twin track approach. Women with disabilities have the right to be included in all mainstream services, but they require disability-specific services. And if you want to know more about the twin track approach, please go read the guidelines, and we hope you'll find it incredibly informative. So thank you, and please join us in committing to women with disabilities, because 500 million people cannot be left behind any longer.
Thank you, Anastasia. And thank you for ending with things that people can do immediately to really make a difference in the lives of women and girls who are living with disabilities. In your experience, where have you seen people make an emotional connection also that can make a difference? Because I think we all feel the need to be doing more.
Sure. I think if you engage women with disabilities in a conversation, I mean, these are obviously sensitive subjects, but having a conversation of how have you experienced those barriers, because I think people will be surprised at the various ways. It's both attitudinal, where people believe women with disabilities are asexual, of why would you need to be screened for contraceptions? Why would you be having sex? Is someone abusing you? And on the other hand, we see people experiencing forced contraception to cover up for sexual abuse. So it's really having those stories with the people who are most left behind.
Thank you so much, and thank you again for being
you.
here. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thanks, you guys too.